Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Taking a look at 5 keys for Nebraska to go on the road and beat a Colorado team that a lot of us have taken a lot of surprise in. This is all of a sudden turns into a massive game for Nebraska, coming off an obviously disappointing loss to Minnesota last Thursday. Now, before we get into the 5 keys again, just want to say thank you to you guys. The support from the Nebraska fans has meant so much. This has been a team that I have loved talking about. Can't thank you guys enough for rocking with the boys. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, let me know in the comment section your 5 keys. We'll talk some ball there. And without further ado, let's get into it. And this is something we did last week heading into the Minnesota game. And Nebraska, looking back, did about 3.5, 4 of those things that we talked about. The 5th, and obviously the bugaboo for that game, was the turnovers. For this matchup, and we previewed this matchup on Sunday, there are some key things I think Nebraska can do that where Colorado is quite frankly just vulnerable at. And the first one, and this is by far my biggest key for Nebraska, and that's running the football. You saw TCU really take advantage of Colorado and their lack of talent and depth on the line of scrimmage. And this is a Colorado team that really good playmakers on the outside at wide receiver, some really impressive cornerbacks, obviously really good quarterback play from Shedeur Sanders. One part, and Colorado fans would tell you this, Coach Prime would even tell you this, the group up front just lacks the talent and depth. And this is something that Nebraska, I think, could really take advantage of. Again, TCU did so last week. 2 things. One, this is the most vulnerable spot of this Colorado team, the trenches, especially on the defense. And then 2, what's the best way? And we always talk about what's the best way to stop a really explosive offense. One, yeah, you can scheme some stuff up, but the second is just keeping that offense off the field. I mean, for Nebraska to go in and win this game, I mean, they need to dominate the time of possession. They need to dominate the line of scrimmage and run the football, keep the football in their hands, and keep Shedeur Sanders on the sideline. That is no doubt the biggest key for Nebraska. And again, Jeff Sims, use him. In my opinion, the biggest mistake a lot of college football coaches make is take a guy and kind of try to make him someone he's not. Jeff Sims is not a pocket passer, right? He's a guy that wants to use athleticism, get outside the pocket. Phenomenal runner. Obviously, you got to clean up some of the turnovers. Use Jeff Sims. Use Gabe Ervin. That Colorado team probably doesn't want to tackle Jeff Sims and Gabe Ervin, guys who both go plus 220 pounds over 40 times a game. I would make Colorado do that. Now, the second thing, and this is in the passing attack, you really got to work the play action. If you can establish the run, which I really think Nebraska should be able to do against Colorado, work that play action. Again, Jeff Sims is not a pocket passer who you want sitting there going through 3, 4 progressions and then delivering a football. Use the play action, specifically get him out of the pocket. That makes it a lot easier for Jeff Sims to process what's going on downfield. I think it simplifies the game. And most importantly, it allows him to use his best assets as a quarterback, and that is being an athlete. If you can establish the run and then work off play action, that I think is a really successful recipe for Nebraska playing this Colorado team. And the last thing on the offensive side of the ball, and this is something that I think 2 things. One, Colorado's strength of the defense is at that cornerback spot, right? Travis Hunter, you obviously have Kamani McLean, but they've done a really good job in the transfer portal, bringing a lot of talented cornerbacks. On the defensive line, in the middle of the defense specifically, not so much. What I'm kind of saying is instead of going out and testing Travis Hunter, who's arguably the best cornerback in the country right now, use your tight ends, use your running backs, and use the quick game. This is something that, for the second reason, Nebraska's down so many wide receivers. Like, this wide receiver room is not at a Power 5 level. I think a lot of Nebraska fans would agree with that. You're going to have to rely on a lot of young cats like Malachi Coleman to give you some juice. And so why go against some of the best cornerbacks in the country when you have some of the best tight ends in the country going up against a Nebraska middle of the defense that is probably a little bit more vulnerable? Thomas Fidone, not a single catch last week. I don't think Billy Kemp registered a catch either. I don't think they had a handful of targets. Use the middle of the field. Use the quick game. I think that allows you to kind of play to Jeff Sims' hands. Don't make him process that much. Get the ball out of his hands. Let him do what he's most successful doing. And the last thing, Ramir Johnson out of the backfield. I want to see more of that. This is a guy that back in 2021, that was his best weapon. And then 2022, I don't know what Scott Frost was doing in that coaching staff. They're going to use him a little bit more. I think this is a perfect example of get Ramir Johnson in space and force this Colorado team to come up and tackle him. Billy Kemp work in the middle of the field as well. I really do like how that plays out for Nebraska on the offense side of the ball. If they can do that, run the football, get play action, and kind of work that quick passing game going away from the strength of Colorado, that seems to be a really good recipe. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, this is going to be a tough task. I mean, Colorado is extremely fast. They have some really good playmakers, and I have to give credit where it's due. Shedeur Sanders looked absolutely phenomenal against TCU. One thing that he didn't see that much of, and definitely not that effectively, was the blitzes. Like TCU runs the 3-3-5 as well. They didn't scheme up many blitzes. I mean, they rushed 3, dropped 8 a lot, and gave Shedeur Sanders a lot of time in the pocket. Shedeur Sanders is a really good processor. If you give him enough time, he's going to find somebody open. I look for Tony White to dial up some pressure and get Shedeur Sanders off his spot a little bit. I still am not sold on Colorado's offensive line. I think it was pretty good against TCU, but I think you can definitely get to it. Thought Tony White did a really nice job mixing up different looks and different blitz packages against Minnesota. I would like to see Tony White do that same thing against Colorado because, again, you talk about what we didn't see Shedeur Sanders do. We didn't see him that get heated up that much. And again, if you give him time, like there are some really good wide receivers on Colorado that I think will get open. Now, this Colorado team is fast. That being said, this Nebraska 3-3-5 is kind of supposed to counter a lot of speed. So you're going to have a lot of DBs on the field. You're going to have a lot of speed yourself. I think the strength of this Nebraska group is in that back end. I think Tony White is going to say, hey, we're going to put a lot of trust in our guys in the back end, and we're going to try to get Shedeur Sanders off his spot. Last thing I want to talk about, giving up the big play. TCU gave up a 75-yard play, a 43, 45, 26, and 46-yard play. I mean, that is 3 plays over 40 yards, 3 of which went for touchdowns. If you can force Colorado to march methodically down the field, I like your chances a lot more than giving up the big play. Again, Colorado has a ton of speed, a ton of playmaking at that wide receiver and running back spot. They can't really run the ball that effectively. Make them march down the field. Make Shedeur Sanders complete 8, 9, 10 passes if they want to go score a touchdown. Don't give up the easy play where they can go 75 yards and score a touchdown. These 5 things, I really do think could lead to Nebraska winning this football game. The last thing I want to talk about is I think this defensive line can test Colorado's offensive line a little bit more than TCU. TCU, and this is not me going like TCU stinks and Colorado's not that good. TCU played for national championship. TCU beat my Michigan Wolverines less than 12 months ago. That being said, they did lose a lot of playmakers up front and didn't really have any guys to get Shedeur Sanders off the spot. I think Nebraska has some dudes, right? Obviously, Ty Robinson has to sit out that first half. Coach Rhule said he's going to play the whole second half. Nash Hutchmaker was absolutely dominant week 1 against Minnesota. And those are going up against some big dogs against Minnesota. I look for him to push a lot of pockets. I think you need to spy Shedeur Sanders. So maybe an Isaac Gifford coming in the box, working as a spy. There's a lot of different ways that Nebraska can do it. But if they do these 5 things, run the football, get Jeff Sims moving out of the pocket, working the play action, using the tight ends and running backs in the quick game, again, going away from Colorado's strength. And then on the defense, dial up some pressure, force them to don't let them hit the big play. I think those 5 things really spell some good news for Nebraska. This is going to be an excellent game. I know you're going to see a lot of red in the stadium. 2 teams we talked a ton about, and they're going to show down Saturday. Appreciate you guys checking the boys out again. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.